Valorie Lewis. My name is Valorie Lewis. I am a intuitive reader. I also use tarot cards and oracle cards. And today's event is all about let's learn tarot. So this is for beginners through all levels. I see a lot of very experienced tarot readers on here, and I love that. It's a little bit of a refresher course. Maybe you'll pick up something that you didn't quite know, and you'll be able to add it to your tarot readings or your tarot knowledge bank. But I want to say, the way I present information is the way I present information. I'm very laid back. I'm very easygoing. I'm very, let's talk about it. If you're like, I heard somewhere, I'm very, just bring it to the table and we'll talk about it. Let me go ahead and get started because this will be a presentation. So I'm going to share my screen. Un momento. That's not the screen. That's not the screen. Hold on, y'all. Mm-hmm. There we go. I had it from my last presentation. Here we go. Let's learn tarot. Let's learn tarot, a guide by Valorie Lewis. All right, let's get started. When I'm doing the presentation, I cannot see your windows. So Sophia will be keeping track of that for me. I'm not ignoring you. I just can't see you. So let's start with the basics. What is tarot? Tarot is a divination tool, cartomancy. It's a way of reading cards to connect yourself with deeper insight, guidance, messages. But the basics of what tarot is in physical terms is tarot is a deck of 78 cards. I say 78 cards, that is the general standard size of deck. However, there are tarot decks that have more cards than that. I haven't really seen any with less, but they could be out there. There are tarot decks that add extra cards in, but the standard deck is 78 cards. Each card has its own unique imagery, symbolism, and meaning. In a reading, cards are often read in relationship to one another, so they're often laid out in a particular spread. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Readings, why? Why would we do readings? Because readings can provide insight and guidance into a person's circumstances or situations, and also give you a deeper perspective on life's challenges and repeating patterns in one's life. Y'all ever get stuck in a repeating pattern and you're just like, what the heck? I thought I worked through this. What's going on? The cards might have some answers for you. It can be a very powerful tool to inner wisdom. So let's talk about the 78 cards. Just a second here. So the 78 cards, we're going to break it down into different groups because there are different groups within the 78 cards. The first group is the major arcana. This is a subset of 22 cards. And these cards in general point to overarching life themes, major life changes or situations. If I were to pull a major arcana for you during a reading, this is something that is probably, it might fall under the topic of personality trait. It might fall under the topic of repeating patterns, but it's generally something that you're dealing with on an overarching theme. So it's something that would affect all areas of your life. It's how you deal with life. That's the major arcana. There are 22 cards numbered 0 to 21. Then after the major arcana, we have the minor arcana. The minor arcana are the other 56 cards, the other cards in the deck. The minor arcana is divided into 4 suits. Generally, they're called swords, cups, wands, and pentacles. Those are the traditional names of the suits. However, some deck creators have some leniency and they name them something different. So your deck might not specifically say swords, cups, wands, and pentacles. For instance, there's a deck that calls pentacles, but it's shields. There's a deck, it's based on Celtic, and instead of calling it pentacles, it calls it shields. But in general, there's always going to be 4 suits, whatever they call them. These are the basic meanings, and these are the names that we will go by when we talk about meanings. After the 4, okay, so after we've divided those 56 cards into 4 suits, each suit has court cards. So court cards are the archetypes, and they represent the people in your life or yourself. And those would be the page, the queen, the king, and the knight. I didn't do that in order, but the page, the knight, the queen, and the queen and the king. Those are the 4 court cards. And so we have 4 suits and 4 court cards. So there's 16 court cards in the entire deck. Then we have the number cards. Those are the 40 other cards. And those represent various life situations like our everyday life. Those are going to point to our everyday life. Those are numbered ace through 10. And there's ace through 10 in each of the 4 suits. So we have 40 cards there. So that's the basic breakdown of your deck. That's what the 78 cards are. If you're very new to tarot, that's helpful to know the difference between what's going on in your deck. So let's talk about the first group, and we're going to talk about them in groups just like I laid them out there. The first thing we're going to talk about is the major arcana. Like I said, there are 22 cards in the major arcana. They are numbered 0 through 21, and they reveal messages about the bigger overall picture. They usually point to major life changes or situations. Each one of these cards by themselves have their own deep meanings. So it would really be beneficial to you if you spent some time getting to know each of the cards in the major arcana, each card separately by itself. The Fool's Journey. So the major arcana can also be described as the Fool's Journey, with the Fool being card 0 in the major arcana. So while each one does have its own meaning, one way to make sense of all 22 cards is that those 22 cards together, they all tell a story, and it starts with the 0 card, the Fool. The Fool is going to represent you or any individual, but most likely it's easier to understand if you understand yourself as the Fool, but not like a traditional fool, not like a dummy. This fool is a fool in the sense that this archetype represents innocence, beginnings, childlike wonder, and this individual or yourself is making this journey through life. So the major arcana represents our journey through life. And it's important to understand that this journey is a cycle. So even though we cycle through life and we get from 0 to card number 21, we're going to begin that cycle all over again with new levels and new lessons and integrating new perceptions. So the way that you understand that is this fool goes on a journey, a life journey, if you will, and he visits each one of the major arcana characters, each one of the 21 other cards. So each of the archetypes that he visits signify various life lessons, trials, successes, setbacks, and major life accomplishments that we all experience. So that is one way to get to know the major arcana, and this is just a list of the cards. So the Fool, we start with 0. That's why I kind of listed it by itself, because that's the one taking the journey, the life journey. The archetypes that he visits are the Magician and the High Priestess, the Empress and the Emperor. I guess I can give just a very brief overall description of what these cards are. The Magician and the High Priestess would be father, mother in the spiritual realm. The Empress and the Emperor would be father, mother in the earthly realm. So you think about this person beginning their life journey. Think about yourself when you were young and you first decided to step out into the world. Maybe if you had a good relationship with your parents, the first person you would talk to would be your parents. What can I expect when I live on my own? Tell me about this thing called bills. So he visits his mom and dad in the spiritual realm. He visits his mom and dad here in the earthly realm. Then he goes to the Hierophant, which represents his beliefs like a religious leader. So then he would go and, figure that out. The Lovers, the Chariot, Strength, these are all various life lessons that he's going to learn along the way. The Hermit, Wheel of Fortune. I'm not going to go into the details of all of them because now we're talking more about lessons after he's visited those first archetypes. These are other entities or archetypes that he would visit as he learns things in life. So the Lovers, he's learning about love. The Chariot, he's learning about perseverance. Strength, he's learning about strength. That one was easy. The Hermit, Wheel of Fortune. Justice, he's learning about balance and justice, making sense of the world. The Hanged Man, death, temperance. The Devil, temptation, he's learning about temptation. The Tower, he's learning about how things sometimes just fall apart. Everything sometimes needs to fall apart before it can come back together. The Star, the Moon, the Sun, I like those. Celestial help, Judgment, and then the World. So how fitting that after he's traveled through all of this and he's learned his life lessons, he ends up with the world. He's got the whole world in his hand. I'm sorry I had to listen to me sing. And then once he finishes that first, thing, it doesn't end. He just goes back through now that he's learned all of this, and he just goes back through, kind of like when you go away to college and you've gone through all of these things, and maybe you've fallen in love, and maybe you've failed a class, and that's the Tower, and maybe you've, I don't know, changed your what am I trying to say? Your course of study several times, and you're spinning like the Wheel of Fortune. Just pick a class. So you've gone through all of this, but once you get through all of that, it's not the end of the world. Now you have to start all over again, learning how to be an adult or find a job or whatever it is you're trying to do with your life. And maybe you're just like, oh gosh, now I finished college. Let me go back and talk with my parents about this next stage of my life. So you continue the cycle. It never ends. It's definitely a cycle. So that's what the major arcana is all about. When you view it that way, sometimes it's easier to step through and learn the meanings of the cards when you view it as a story or as a life lesson. Let me pause and just ask, does anyone have any basic questions over what I presented? Anything that needs to be clarified there? No?
I'm not seeing any hands, nothing in the chat.
Yay. Yay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Sandy.
So, all the stuff after the Emperor and the Hierophant, he's learning lessons, the cards that he's visiting. But then the Star, Moon, and Sun are they're help cards. They're not like lessons he's visiting.
The Star, Moon, and the Sun are actually lessons as well.
Okay.
They're lessons, but it's also after the Tower in his story, after everything falls apart, to me, and this is my personal interpretation of the major arcana, to me, after he's learned all these lessons and he's like, it's kind of like you learn how to love, you learn how to balance things in your life, you learn about death. Like these are all individual lessons. And then the Tower is like where everything kind of falls apart. And then what happens after the Tower, for me, my interpretation is he learns to take all of these individual lessons and pull them all together to become more of a whole individual. He learns how love and death work hand in hand. He learns how justice and strength work hand in hand. So the Star, the Moon, and the Sun are different archetypes. For instance, the Star talks about, well, the Star is represented as being naked, and that's after having gone through everything falling apart as the Tower, now you step out into the world naked in a sense that you have nothing left to hide. You've gone through the worst of the worst, and now you're at a point where you have nothing left to hide. What is the lesson of the Star? Being vulnerable, being open, having nothing left to hide, being connected spiritually as well as grounded here in the earthly realm. So it's lessons like that that he learns after the Tower that are represented by celestial beings. And to me, both the sun, the Star, the Moon, and the Sun are incorporating, how do I take all of these lessons? How do I connect all of these lessons so that I'm connected spiritually as well as here in the earthly realm? Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that was amazing and very informative. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Charles, you're next.
Hey, so it sounds like in tarot there is a story that goes. It sounds like the deck is kind of a really big storyboard for this character, the Fool, and it sounds like being familiar with the story of a tarot deck would be helpful to understanding your own reading. Am I right about both of those things? Or
You are
either of them?
absolutely correct about all of those things. Yes, Charles. So the full, we will talk about the 4 suits, but the full and the major arcana, that is, you're straight, you're correct, you're on point with that. Yes, the full is definitely a story, learning that story, and it's also an easier way to learn tarot, because when you learn that story, then when you pull the Lover's card, you see either yourself or the full interacting with this, and it's more like a story in your mind that you can tell as you pull the cards, as opposed to, oh, the Lover's card, this means dot 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 dot, I have to figure out what this means in a reading. It's easier when it's a story. And so yes, along with the major arcana being more or less a story on its own, the 4 suits also tell their own individual stories, and they have their own individual storylines. And the tarot as a whole is just that. It's all about storytelling.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for the question.
Perfect. And it looks like in the chat, the gist of the current conversation is that there is a difference between Oracle and Tarot, I think would be most important. There's a question here from, I'm going to butcher this, Shakia. How do you know which image is the full card when there are so many different decks? I have an Oracle deck by John Holland, excuse me. So then others have jumped in to explain that there is a difference between the two.
Yes, and that's one of the most common questions. So I will go ahead and answer that now, and what I feel is the difference between the two. So tarot is a standard deck, 78 cards. You're going to have, for the most part, the cards that we're talking about here. They might be called something different. I've seen the magician called many things, sorcerer, the alchemist. Some decks will call them something different, but you're still, for the most part, going to have 22 cards in your major arcana, 4 suits, and some of the other cards that we're going to talk about here. And so tarot is a standardized, air quotes, a standardized deck of 78 cards that follow a particular set, a particular way of the cards and telling a story. Oracle cards are completely created by the creator. So an oracle card can be anything. It can be about unicorns, it can be about nature, it can be about crystals, it can be about chakras. The individual author of that deck creates the card, creates the imagery, or has someone else create the imagery, and then they write what they want you to gain insight on about that deck. And so oracle cards are very specific to the author, to the creators, and it's very unlikely that you will find 2 decks that are the same. They're not standardized at all. They can be whatever the author comes up with. A tarot deck is going to follow a standard. Even if the author takes some liberties with the naming of the card, it's still going to follow a standard, and it's still going to have 78 cards. And just a little bit of back info, tarot started out as a playing game. So that's why you wouldn't pick up a deck of 52 cards to play poker, and you would have one card with 52, and you'd have another deck with 40 cards, and you'd have another, all poker decks, no matter what imagery they put on them, they're going to be a poker deck. And it's kind of the same with tarot because they started out as playing cards. So I hope that answers that question.
I love that little tidbit. I love that. That was a game.
I want to learn how to play that game. It's still out there, and there's still overseas. They still play it as a game, and I want to learn how to play it. It's kind of one of those complicated. You have to have books in hands, and kind of like what has it been compared to, bridge or playing spades?
Okay.
Kind of thing. So yeah, and so you need more than one. You need to have a group to play it. And that's the extent of what I know about the actual game.
Awesome. All right, we've got a question here from Amber. Why is the Fool both 0 and 22?
That is dependent on the person that creates the deck. I have seen that done, and I'm not sure why anyone would make it the last card. Most commonly, it's card 0. I've also seen people label it as card 1. I don't know why. I don't understand that. I would need to see the specific deck where it's labeled as card 22 to kind of try to make sense of why they did that. But in general terms, the Fool is 0 because the Fool is and that's why it's 0. And that's why it's not a numbered card, because he's the one or she's the one making the journey through the other cards. But I have seen that. I have seen that the Fool is numbered differently. There's also to note, strength, and which one is it? Let me look. Strength and justice. Now this is several decks. Strength and justice will sometimes be flipped. And that's just based on, it's based on a couple of different things. It's based on way back when they made cards, strength and justice. Some decks, that's just the way they were. And then someone came along and said, no, let's make this in an order where it makes sense. And the order that it made sense to that person was for strength to come first and then justice to come in the other position. And so then they started making decks with it in that way. So you will pick up decks where strength and justice are flipped. That's a common thing with tarot decks as far as those numbers being out of sequence. Doesn't mean that you have a bad deck or that somebody didn't know what they were doing. It just depends on which line of organization they decided to follow. Strength and justice are the two. I know it's, yeah, strength and justice are the two that flip flop, depending on your deck.
Excellent. All right, I think we've got through our questions. I don't have anything in the chat. I don't see any hands. We'll give everyone a moment.
Well, let's move on and then we can
Good.
stop for questions a little bit further if we have more questions, or pop it in the chat if you think of something. Okay, so that's the major arcana. Let's move on to the minor arcana, which are the other 40 cards. Nope, 56 cards, the other 56 cards in your deck. And they are divided into 4 suits. So we'll talk about the suits first. Swords also corresponds to air if you're elemental. And the swords talks about our beliefs. I'm sorry, our thoughts, our attitudes, and our beliefs. So it's our mentality, our intellect, our knowledge, and our power. Can also speak to clarity. This is one way I remember clarity. If you have a lot of thoughts flying around in your head and you take a sword and you cut through the clouds of your thoughts, it's kind of like cutting through to find clarity. So the suit of swords can also talk about finding that mental clarity, but it's most often associated with our thoughts and our beliefs. Whatever goes on up in here in our headspace is what the suits most, is what the swords most commonly refer to. And it is a masculine element, so air and a masculine element. Then we go to the cups, which is water, as far as an element. And the cups deal with our emotions, our feelings, our relationships, and healing. And it is a feminine element. So those of you that are familiar with elements know that water most often, no matter what modality you're studying, water most often talks about our emotions. It's an emotional fluid kind of thing. And one other thing that the cups represents is intuition. And I don't know why it's not on this slide. This isn't an older slide, I think, maybe. Anyway, so our emotions and feelings, also intuition, relationships, and healing, and it is a feminine element. The wands, fire, I must say, one of my favorite suits because I'm a fire sign. But the wands, element, fire, our magic within, of course, because we're talking about wands. It's our higher self or spirit realm, spirituality, intuition, primal energy. And I know I've mentioned intuition twice in 2 different suits. I know. Primal energy, sexuality, passion, creativity, and strength. And this is a masculine element. Fire is a masculine element. And what else do I want to say about wands? The easiest way to remember the suit of wands for me, and this is the basic meaning, understand that the more you get into giving readings and understanding the cards and understanding the relationships, you'll gain deeper insight. But for a place to start, this is a basic understanding, and this is how I remember the suit of wands. Is I think of literally holding a wand in my hand and waving it around. So I relate wands with your own personal magic. What does that wand represent for you? Your creativity? Is it your spirituality? Is it your own innate talents, gifts? It's what you use to create in the world. That's how I remembered it. Pentacles. So our last suit is the suit of Pentacles. It is an earth sign. And it is also a feminine element, and it is our physical world and what we create and manifest around us. So anything that is here and tangible in our physical world is represented by the suit of Pentacles. That could be our career, money, success, physical health. It's also anything that we hold valuable in this world. So it could also be our family and relationships. It's associated with our ego, our self-esteem and self-image, all of those things that make us here real in these meat sacks. It's our physical, tangible, touch it, taste it, feel it world around us. Relates to those things. The physical self that we present to the world, and as I mentioned, it's a feminine element. So those are how we divide the minor arcana into those 4 suits. And once we've divided them, now we're going to talk about the different groupings of the court cards and then the numbered cards. So we're going to talk about the court cards first. There are 16 of these cards, 4 for each suit. The page, that is the lowest of the court cards, and the page often represents newness, beginnings, and youth. So if you have a page of cups, so you're going to take the cups, what we know about the cups, we're going to take the page, what we know about the page, and this is what they would mean together. So you've pulled a page of cups. It would mean infatuation, innocence. Again, these are very basic beginning terms, so you can get an idea of what these cards mean in a reading, but there's lots of deeper meanings available. Pentacles. So the page of pentacles would represent focus and progress. The page of swords, invention and self-assuredness. And the page of wands, enthusiasm and motivation. So you can kind of see where what we know about the cups and the pentacles and the swords and the wands, and now what we know about the page, talking about newness, new beginnings, and youth, how those would come together. I'll give you an example. Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm is that feeling that you feel when you're about to do something new and you're all excited and you're enthusiastic about it and you're about to bring something new into the world. Maybe it's a new hobby, maybe it's a new project, but it's something new that you're going to use your own talents to bring into the world. So we've got new and your own talents together, enthusiasm. So the knight, the next court card is the knight, and knights represent the actionaries. Knights in traditional decks and most decks are pictured on horseback. And when you think about a knight in a traditional court setting, the knight is the one that is on horseback. The knight is the one that goes to battle. The knight is the actionary of the court. So it indicates a decisive action might be needed, or some type of forward movement is being called from when you pull this card, called for when you pull this card. So if you pull a Knight of Cups, and we know cups are about our emotions, then this could point to romance or honor. Pentacles, with the Knight of Pentacles, reliability and decisiveness. The Knight of Swords, confrontation and debate, because we're talking about something that's going on up here in our headspace. So if we're needing to take some kind of action related to what's going on in our logical thinking space, it might be a debate or a confrontation. And then the Knight of Wands would point to adventure and impulsivity. Queen, the Queen court card. The Queen is the caregiver in the court, motherly figure, nurturer, protector. This may indicate areas of your life that you need to give extra attention and support to, or it could be pointing towards the receiver of such support. So the Queen of Cups would represent empathy and love. The Queen of Pentacles would represent security and thrift. The Queen of Swords, intelligence and clarity. The Queen of Wands, creativity and sensuality. And then we have the King court card. The King is the leader, mastery, control of the situation, expertise, and authority. So the King of Cups, sensitivity and diplomacy. The King of Pentacles, financial stability and Philanthropy. Why did I have such trouble with that word? I don't know. The King of Swords, logic and maturity. And the King of Wands, bravery and leadership. I do want to say something else about the court cards. The way I read the cards when I pull a queen or a king let's go with Wands, since I already told y'all that's my favorite suit. The way I see it is Wands, I go with what I know about the suit of the Wands being bringing your own magic in the world. And I see the King and Queen as level archetypes. So if you've pulled a queen or a king, you're still on the same level. It's just, how are you harnessing the energy of Wands? Are you doing it in a more feminine way? We all have, it's not dependent on whether you're a male or a female. We all have feminine and masculine energy. Are you harnessing the power of the suit of Wands because you pulled a queen card in a more feminine, nurturing, protector, emotional, intuitive way? Are you harnessing that energy that way? Or if you pull a King of Wands, still on the same level, and these levels indicate a level of mastery, because you're a king and queen, like you've achieved what you wanted to achieve. But how did you achieve it? Did you achieve it by leaning into the more feminine side of these powers, or this suit of Wands, or did you achieve it by using your more masculine energy, which means you took leadership, you took control of your skills and your talents, you took control of the situation, you were an expert in your skills and talents, and you used authority in creating what you wanted to create. So I see them as the same level. It's just, which energies did you use to achieve this level of success in whatever it is that you're trying to get to? And then going back just a little bit, and then I see the other court cards, the Page and the Knight, as either this is a new beginning, you've reached a level of being in court, as opposed to trying to figure stuff out. You're now at a level of okay, you're getting there because you're in court, you're in one of the higher statuses. But if you're a page, you're just now stepping into this energy. And if you're a knight, there's more action that is needed. And then if you're a king or queen, I've already discussed those. So that's kind of how I see the court cards in an overall general term. Let me see, what's my next card? Okay, let me go back. Do we have any questions over the court cards? The 16 court cards.
Nothing that's come in during. Elizabeth says that's helpful. Court cards are tricky for her.
They are,
Indeed.
I agree.
Agreed. Mhm. Everyone loves your reference to meat sacks.
Now
We
my own,
got a
I
question.
first got that from Jennifer. Go ahead.
Miss L, go ahead, hon.
Hi, just wondering if you could bring the prior screen back up real quick from before Queen and King. Sorry.
This one?
Yeah.
Reverse.
Yay.
It was like kind of fast when you changed, so I just was like trying to make sure that I got it all. So.
No worries. I actually, when I was going through these slides, I was like, I should put these in a document. So I will be putting them in a document and posting links to like this layout here for Page, Knight, Queen and King. And I already have documents for some of the other things that I'm going to share in a little bit. So if that helps you, those will be available.
Okay, we just got a question here from Kristen. Hi Val, my deck has a princess. Is that princes and princesses. Is the princess considered the knight? It's the Truth Seekers Tarot by David Fontana.
So what are
the prince being the page, the princess being the knight? If it's prince, princess, king, and queen, I'm assuming.
If it's
Kristen?
prince, princess, king, and queen.
Was that right, Kristen? Is that the right? Oh, I can't hear you, babe. You're on mute.
Okay, can you hear me now? I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, you're fine.
It's prince, princess, queen, and king.
And is that the way they're laid out in the book? Do you have a guidebook?
I do, yeah.
Does it list the definitions for prince first?
Shoot, I don't. Okay, so it's princess and then prince. So
Princess would be page.
okay.
And prince would be actionary. And generally, that's what I was going to guess, but I hate to gender assign, even though that's kind of what the tarot deck does, because generally the page would have more feminine starter energy, where like we
Okay.
talked about, the knights are the actionaries on horseback going out to battle. So that
Okay.
would have more of a masculine energy.
That makes
But
sense.
yeah, but one clue to, if you're unsure because your deck is labeled kind of weird, is go to the guidebook and see how they give the definitions. Generally, they'll
Okay.
give them in the order of page, knight, queen, king, even if they name them something totally different.
I see. Okay, cool. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Okay,
Perfect.
let's move on just in the interest of time. If I've missed your question, please put it in the chat and I'll try to circle back around. Okay, let me get, so the number cards, ace through 10. There are 40 of these, 10 per suit. Each number represents various situations we face in life. And this is where I pause to say they do not just pick these numbers haphazardly and slap some definitions on them. These numbers are very, very closely related to numerology. So if you know numerology and you know what 1 through 10 in numerology stands for, then you can kind of pretty much figure out what each of the numbered cards in the tarot can point to. Basic overview. We're talking about basic definitions here. So 1 would point to new beginnings, opportunity, and potential. I do have a slide for this. If you want to take a screenshot or take notes, feel free, but I do have an actual handout for this one. 2 points to partnerships, balance, and duality. 3 points to expression, groups, and growth. 4 is going to point to manifestations, foundations, and stability. 5 is conflict, change, and instability. Excuse me. 6 is harmony, cooperation, and healing. 7 is reflection, assessment, control. 8 is mastery, accomplishment, and action. And then 9 is attainment, fulfillment, fruition. And 10 is end of cycle, completion, and renewal. There will be a link for this handout. Okay, that's where I'm going to go back. And for just a moment, I'm going to stop the screen share so I can see everyone and ask if anyone has any questions while I try to find the link that I didn't prepare ahead of time. I have the link. I just got to figure where I put the link.
Miss L asked, will the document have all the cards numbered? I think that she's referring to the document you were talking about creating.
No, this document is going to be just that one screenshot that shows the number cards 1 through 10, just giving you a very basic overview of what 1 through 10 means.
Okay. We are excited for that handout.
Yeah.
We will wait patiently.
I hope I can find it. I hope I can find it. Oh, Lord. Lord have mercy. One moment.
You're fine. Can we have that screen back while we answer questions, please?
Yeah, hang on just a second. If I can't, y'all. Oh, I found it.
Yeah.
Oh, I had it somewhere. I'm sorry I wasn't more prepared. Let me put it in chat and then I'll bring the screen back up. I'm sorry, one moment.
I don't have any other questions in the chat though.
There we go.
Perfect.
Okay, now let me put the screen back up. All righty.
Miss Bell would like to know how you get your hair so gorgeous. It's
Unicorns
natural, baby.
unicorns come while I sleep and they braid my hair. Thank you, though. Thank you for the compliment. Okay, let's move on. Getting to know your deck. Ways to practice becoming familiar with your deck. If you have your decks, you can pull your decks out and play along with me now. We're just going to talk about some things, and these might be some things you want to do later on your own, but here's a couple of ideas of how you can familiarize yourself with your deck. The first thing would be, if you have a brand new deck and you've never worked with it, clearing your deck and setting intentions. Just like any spiritual tool, you want to spend your time actually honoring it as a tool. And so whatever things that you would do normally to clear your other spiritual tools are the same things you can do with the tarot deck. You can set it out under full moon and let the moon cleanse it. If you want sun energy, you can set it out under the sun and let the sun clear it. You can use crystals. Sometimes I'll set my decks right on my desk and I'll set a crystal right on top of it. You can use crystals to clear your deck. You can, oh, another thing, sometimes I'm almost out, but I used to have a Palo Santo. I always say that wrong, but I used to use that. And as I was clearing my space, I would take time and intentionally clear it around my decks, and I would use that to clear the energy from my decks specifically. So clearing your deck and setting intentions. Once that energy is cleared, then just sit with your deck. Just, love on your deck. Your decks want to be loved. Love on your deck. See, Sophia's got it. And just set your intentions. You've got a nice clear deck, set your intentions. Please show me how to connect on a deeper level, or please show me the guidance that I seek. Whatever it is you're hoping to, or please, let's have fun. Whatever intention you want, whatever it is you go to your tarot deck for, set that intention. And just like you would any spiritual tool, just spend some time clearing your deck and setting your intentions. That's one way to create a more intimate bond with your spiritual tools. I don't know how else to put it, but instead of just seeing it as a deck of cards that gains dust on your desk, if you begin to see it as a spiritual tool and you actually spend time with it as a spiritual tool, you create a deeper bond and you're able to get more information from it than just pulling it out when you're ready to get an answer. Story time. So this is a practice of learning to get familiar with your deck. And one way you can do that, let me see what my next bullet point is. Okay, no, we don't want to talk about that. And so one way you can do that, I highly suggest you do that, especially if it's a new deck, especially if you're unfamiliar with the imagery, is take your cards in order and lay out your major arcana. Start with your major arcana in order. Don't worry about what the book is telling you what the meaning is. As you lay it out in order, and as I've already explained that it is a type of a journey, lay them out 0 through 21 and let those cards tell you a story. Spend some time looking at each card in order. If you were the Fool and you were visiting each one of these, what do you notice about the Empress card? What's the one thing that stands out? You don't have to get too deep into it. What's the one thing that stands out to you about the Empress card? If you were a Fool meeting this person for the first time, what would you want to know about her? Why is her belly full? How long has she been pregnant? Apparently forever, because every deck shows her pregnant. But what questions would you want to ask the Empress as you get to know her? What question would you ask the Devil? That's a good one. What do you want to know about him, and why is he in this tarot deck? So that's one way of getting to know your deck, is just spending some time with it as if you were stepping through the cards yourself and getting to know the characters. That's one for the major arcana. For the minor arcana, again, I suggest laying them out in order, ace through 10, and letting, somebody's cracking up, so I know y'all said something in the chat. Okay, laying them out in order, ace, and I'm fine with that. Y'all know I'm fine with that.
No. Heaven was just saying she's singing happy birthday. Be right back. It's like we should all sing.
Yeah. Okay. So the numbered cards, ace through 10. This is even easier than the major arcana because they are specifically designed to tell a progressive story. So when you start with the Ace of Cups, and then you go to the Two of Cups, and then you go to the Three of Cups, they are specifically designed to tell a progressive story until you get to the Ten of Cups. So you can lay those out that way and just see what kind of story comes to you. What do you notice about the cards? Is there any recurring theme that something is showing up in all of the cards that is pointing to something meaningful to you? Just get some time, take some time to get familiar with your deck and the images in your deck and what stands out to you personally. And then the third grouping would be the court cards, the only ones we haven't done. And the court cards play well together too, as with the court cards, I would suggest taking the court cards, page, knight, queen, king of each suit, and seeing same thing you did with ace through 10. What kind of stories do they tell? You know, how do these, because it's not really going to be a progressive story. It's going to be like, imagine yourself in King Arthur's court, and these are the 4 individuals in the court. How are these 4 individuals working together in the suit of cups? How are these 4 individuals, how are they representing themselves? What kind of kingdom do you think these 4 individuals would be reigning over? What would their kingdom look like? This king and this queen of swords, or this page and this knight. Who is the knight going off to battle? What does he do? What is his function if he's the knight of cups? So that's a way to get familiar with the court cards, especially if you're a beginner, and especially if you don't want to go through and try to learn the meaning of all 78 cards. Just get really familiar with what do those cards mean to you and what stories do they tell to you. It's all about storytelling. And then with the court cards, you could do it with the number cards, but specifically with the court cards, after you've done them per suit, so you've got page, knight, queen, king of wands, then I suggest doing all of the knights together. So now you're going to lay out knight, 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 knight. What do these knights all have in common? Generally, they'll all be on horseback for starters, so they're all going somewhere. And then what other commonalities can you find between all of the knights? What differences do you find between all of the knights? What story, or if there was some, I see a Lord of the Rings battle when I picture this. If there was some huge battle between the elves and man and the giants and everybody, so you've got these 4 kingdoms coming to the middle of this battlefield, and the knights are all on horseback. What are each one of these knights battling for? What are they defending? What are they standing for? What is their purpose? So you can look at them, all the knights together, all the pages together. Another designation for pages is they're the messengers of the court. So along with being new beginnings and freshness and youth, they're also the messengers of the court. What message would the kingdoms of wands send out, and what message would the pages be delivering? So, and then the queens, if the queens all got together for tea, what would they be talking about their kingdom? If the kings all got together for some board meeting about how they're going to divide up the property lines of their kingdoms, what kind of conversation would happen between the King of Cups and the King of Wands? So that's kind of a way that you can make it fun to learn tarot and make it fun to familiarize yourself with the deck, is see it as a story, because it is very much a story. Another way is journaling. So as you're doing that story time, journal about it, write it down. What was the first interpretation you had the first time you pulled out the judgment card from your new deck? Write about it, because it is probably going to change, especially as your readings progress and your knowledge increases. So continue to journal about it. Maybe you have an entire journal that's only about the Queen of Wands, and you just write about her every day. And what did you figure out about her? How did you feel about her in December of 2020? How do you feel about her now in July of 2021? So journaling is a great way to not only become familiar with your deck, but to also track your progress as you learn the tarot and as you get these deeper insights and these differing messages from the same card as it relates to different situations. Journaling is great for so many reasons. I already mentioned how it can help you with the tarot, but of course it can also help you on your spiritual journey, tracking progress, just seeing, how have my views and beliefs changed. So those are 3 ways that I recommend getting to know your deck. Let me check. Just want to be aware of the time. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for 3 minutes. Let's go with 3 minutes of questions. Do we have any questions before we move on to about the deck itself, before we move on to giving a reading and using your deck to give a reading?
All right, let's see. Misha.
Misha.
There she is.
Oops. Hi, Val. So sorry, I was driving and then I just got home. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. So what is your take, or have you heard the theory about the original creators of the Rider Waite deck having been members of the Golden Dawn and having sworn the oath to the Golden Dawn that, you know, they wouldn't divulge the Golden Dawn secrets about the tarot? And so when they created the Rider Waite tarot deck, that they actually switched the wands and swords so that they weren't divulging the Golden Dawn's secrets, so that they actually are supposed to be the opposite of what they are commonly considered now. And that was the way that they were able to not divulge the secrets of the Golden Dawn. That, because that's the way I was taught, was that that's what happened, is that that's what happened.
I have not heard that story. I will tell you what I have heard about the Golden Dawn and all of that. So I have not heard the story about the suits being switched. From what I know, it doesn't sound too far-fetched from stories that are out there about it. So I'm not discounting it. I don't know if it happened or didn't happen. So let me give you two perspectives. First is the perspective of what I know about what happened way back when, which is, it's a little bit, I know a little bit. Yes, the author of the Rider Waite deck and the artist as well, who was a lady, one of the first ladies who was allowed to, you know, do stuff back then, were both members of the Golden Dawn of Hermetic Order, I believe is the complete title.
The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn.
Yeah, that's what I said, sure. Which was an occult group. It was an occult order back then. So all I know is that they were both members, that they got together. He had the idea for the deck. He needed an artist. She created the artwork. From what I understand, there wasn't much, he wasn't micromanaging her. He was like, I need you to draw a picture of the Queen of Wands. And she was like, okay. And she drew a picture of the Queen of Wands. It wasn't, from my understanding, it wasn't him saying the Queen of Wands needs to have these symbols in it, and this is the magic that I need. That's not how it happened, for my understanding, which is why so as far as it all being secret, maybe not, it was an occult, it was a secret society. I'm sure they had their secrets, but he wrote his own pictorial, I forget the exact title, pictorial something of the tarot. He wrote a book himself describing what he thought the pictures meant. And that's why there's some disconnect, because like I said, Smith just took it and ran with it, and she made her own pictures. And he had to take his knowledge of what he knew the tarot to mean and try to relate it with what she drew the tarot. And so he went back in and he tried to describe, this is what the symbolism in the Queen of Swords means, and this is what the Queen of Swords as a card means. And so he wrote a book. So not much secrecy there. He wrote a book and published a book and gave it out to anybody who wanted to know what the hell tarot was about. But I say all that to say, he wasn't the first one that made a tarot deck. He was one of the standards, and he was one of the ones that pulled it all together and put all the ideas in a way that we could all understand it. But there were other tarot decks. Aleister Crowley also had a tarot deck called, what did he call his? A Thoth deck, I think.
Yeah, with all the Thoth decks were totally different though than than the writer.
Yes, but they had their basis in the same.
Yes, they all have
foundation
their basis.
of-
But Smith also was, you know, part of the Golden Dawn. So she and what they all would have been, you know,
Working
had to
together.
take that same oath and understand the same knowledge
So
about
this is what I
tarot.
would say about the secrecy thing, and did they
Mhm.
switch the wand? Did they switch the wands with the swords and what's going on? Even if they did, the way we know the tarot deck right now is so open and so shared, and it's so much dependent upon your own interpretation,
Mhm.
that if you want to pick up a sword, a cup of sword, let me say an ace of swords, and if you see that ace of swords as an ace of wands because you know the deeper meaning, read it that way, because it matters how you read it. It doesn't matter how they originally said you're supposed to read it.
No,
So-
and I understand that completely. But it's interesting though, because if you look at it that way, then when you look at how some artists have created their decks, now you see it, and you see the sword being forged by fire, and then you see the wand being, swept through the air or whatever, and then you see, but then you can. I'm just saying it adds an additional layer of meaning. I just didn't know whether or not you had heard.
I heard someone switched the elements, saying that swords were fire and wands were air, and there was some confusion there. And so I'm not saying that my way is the only way. I'm saying my way is the more standardized way. And like I
Yes,
said,
yes,
you're gonna
that
pull
is
those
the
decks.
standardized way. Yes.
Yeah, and make sure you're
Perfect.
gonna pull those decks where the artist has intentionally made swords a fire sign and intentionally made the wands the air sign. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just know that that's that deck. Just the same way that I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. Hers had pages and princesses instead of,
Mhm.
or I'm sorry, princes and princesses.
Mm-hmm.
So there are variations. If they switch those way back when, which I'm what I know about the Golden Dawn is entirely plausible that could have happened, in a way to try to keep the secrecy of the tarot within the society. But they failed, because I got 10 tarot decks right now. So, but I
yeah.
love that story. I do love that story because I do like knowing about the history of the tarot deck. So that's my.
I got it
take on
from.
that.
I got that knowledge from Susanna Magdalena.
That's perfect. Perfect.
And
Perfect.
yeah, when
Yeah.
I took my tarot classes from her,
Okay,
and she, I don't know. Oh, yeah. So she got
It's
some knowledge
plausible.
that.
But we can still read tarot either way. Either way.
Oh, absolutely.
All right.
So
All right, Val. I got
just
one more
adds
question for
another
you.
layer. Onions have layers. Tarot has layers. So there we go.
All right.
Perfect.
Go for it, Sophia.
iPhone would like to know what would be the Hierophant. Is that, I don't know how to say that.
Yes.
Hierophant
Hierophant.
card. Hierophant. Okay, that works. What would be the Hierophant card? I don't remember if you went over that one.
What would the card meaning be? That would be your religious figure. So it's most often portrayed as, almost looks like the Pope. There's a lot of history on that card too, and why he looks that way. But that would be the religious figure, and that's very basic overview. It also deals with your beliefs, like what beliefs were you taught as you reach that stage in the Fool's journey. You're questioning. You've talked to your mom and your dad and whatever. Now you're questioning your beliefs. Okay, I'm a new person. It's like you're in your 20s and you're out of college and you're about to unleash yourself into the world. But before you do that, what are my beliefs? What are my beliefs? Not the beliefs that mama and daddy taught me, not the beliefs that the church taught me, but what are my beliefs? And it's that moment of self-reflection and figuring out which beliefs are yours, which beliefs you're going to carry on with. So it's all often represented as a religious figure, but I believe it has a lot to do with your beliefs. It can also do with this, it's ascension and enlightenment. It's all of those things.
Awesome. I hope that answers your question, iPhone.
Okay, let's move on.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So giving a reading. So what is a reading? We've talked about the deck. Most of y'all know what a reading is, but let me just tell y'all what I think a reading is. A reading is a way to open a conversation between you and source. So it's not just sitting with your cards and it's you and your cards and you're saying, come on cards, please tell me when I'm going to win the lottery. It's not just you and your cards. The cards are just a tool. What you are really doing is connecting yourself with source, connecting yourself with God, divine, your inner being, whatever you call that non-physical aspect. You want to connect with that all-knowing aspect so that you can get answers from a greater spiritual knowledge bank and not just rely on what you're doing right here in your human world. So when you open that conversation, you can use many tools. You can use crystals, you can use tarot, you can use pendulums, whatever. This tool is a way to open that conversation. So as you use the tarot cards, it's not just you and the cards, it's you, the cards, and source. You, the cards, and God. And if you're reading for someone else, of course, it becomes a trine. It's you, God. Well, I didn't include the cards. That makes a 4. Anyway, it's a conversation between you, source, and the person you're reading for, or just you and source. And you're just using the cards as a tool. It's like a communication tool. So source is guiding you or influencing you by the cards you draw. That's how source is communicating with you. Think of the cards as a phone. You pick up the phone, hey God, how's it going? I need some help. And then you look and, see what kind of text message is God sending you today. So that's how I see it, as a tool for conversation. And so that's what happens during a reading, is you're opening yourself up to those deeper conversations and that deeper insight coming from source. So be easy about it. When you start dealing cards for yourself or for others, what I want you to lean into is, what stories are the cards trying to tell you, as opposed to, what do these cards mean? What did she say the 2 of Cups meant again? That kind of takes you off the track from what is source trying to tell you. What are the cards trying to tell you? Again, tarot is all about storytelling. So again, if you want to think of your phone, of your cards as just a communication tool, and you just picked up your phone and you're talking to God, and God is sending you a text message, what does that text message say is what you want to look at. What does that text message say, if that's your phone, as opposed to, oh, I need to know what's the make and model of this phone? What cell service if I am? How is God even communicating with me? Like, those are not important factors when you go to reading cards. What's important is, what is the message that's trying to come through? So yes, it is instrumental and very, very helpful to know the meanings of the cards in traditional sense. That's why we went over all of this, but it's not the end all be all. The end all be all is what is happening between you and source during this conversation that you've opened up using your tool of tarot. So let's practice. So I've told you all the things. For those of you that are brand new to tarot reading, maybe this will be insightful for you, so you can kind of see, oh, that's what a tarot reading about. For those of you who are not and who are experienced, this will still be cool, because we might do a little bit of interaction here. I'm just trying to keep track of the time here. So now's the part where you guys get to volunteer. Who wants to volunteer first? I'm going to let Sophia pick and Sophia keep track. Actually, I'm going to stop the screen right here so I can see everybody while I do this.
And I should probably stop the recording, yes?
Yes, why don't you do that, since this will be more personalized.
So before we do that, if you want to just real quick go over your, what you offer and where those that are watching the video can find you.
Oh, yes, let's do that. So let me pause and just say for a moment, let me go back to the screen. Okay, so we are going to pause this. Let me be professional. We're going to pause this for the recording, but before we go into the individualized, you should have been here to see this portion, we will go back to the screen share because I do have some things I want to share with you that are going to make more sense if they're on screen. So I just want to give a reference site and a thanks to where I pulled some of this information from. Biddy Tarot, excellent site for beginners. Please check that out if you're looking for definitions of the card meanings. Tarot.com/tarot/cards/major arcana has some excellent definitions and symbology on the major arcana. And then we have refinery29.com. I'm not going to read all that. Tarot court card meanings has some excellent information references for the court cards if you want a deeper look into the court cards. Gonna leave that up for just a moment. Okay. Coupon codes. I want everybody who sees this to see the coupon codes. And these coupon codes are good for AZ members. So the code AZ40 is going to give you 40% off a reading from yours truly. There are only 4 available. So if you want 40% off of my reading, you better go get it now. And it expires July 31st. The website to schedule with me is goddesswithanAttitude.as.me. And then for everyone else, once those 4 coupon codes are gone, everyone else will get 10% off my reading. And that is coupon code AZ10. And that is forever. It never expires. If you're an AZ member, you get 10% off my readings forever and ever. Amen.
Yay. How cool is that, guys? Yeah, that's so cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay, I'm going to stop the screen share and then